Rex, who, when I came home from school one day in early spring and looked for his leash in the kitchen closet and didn't find it and called his name, Rex, Rex, repeatedly, and Rex was nowhere in sight. I found my mother bent over her drawing table in the far corner of our living room, behind the piano. No one knew how to play. I asked her where Rex was, and this is what my mother told me in this Jewish mother joke. I can't talk, can't you see I'm busy? But I insisted, just tell me where Rex is. Most of my young life, I didn't have the nerve to insist to my mother. I was no match for her. She could out-talk, outthink, and intimidate, while at one and the same time managed to make me pity her for how much she had sacrificed and how little she was thanked for it. I was putty in her hands, but not at this precise moment. I wanted to know where my dog had gone, and I knew she was holding out on me. Finally, after much prodding, she came out with the truth. My mother had given Rex away to a farmer who had a little girl who would give Rex a good home in the country, better than a cramped Bronx apartment, and she hadn't told me at first because she knew I'd go and make a scene. And with all that she had to do, cook, clean, make a living to see us through the Depression, with all these responsibilities, she couldn't take on the extra responsibility of a dog. I had no way of absorbing and or making sense of her revelation. But I take care of Rex, I cried. My mother countered with her very different, entirely speculative take on the situation, which sounded perfectly plausible in her eloquent delivery. She said that whatever my good intentions, I wouldn't have gone on taking care of Rex. I would have gotten bored or forgotten. I was, after all, a little boy, and would have left it for my mother to pick up the pieces. She was always picking up the pieces. She picked up the pieces for my father when he let her down 6 or 7 times a day. She picked up the pieces for my sister Mimi 100 times a day. I stood steamrolled by the side of her drawing table, struck dumb by her brilliant advocacy. Earlier that day she had, without warning, behind my back, given my dog away. And now she was explaining what she'd done in a defense that subtly hinted that the fault was mine. I did not take good enough care of Rex, not now perhaps, but sometime in the future, thus forcing my mother's hand. I left her no choice. As a result of my sure-to-be forgetfulness, my gross and future irresponsibility, she had to give my dog away, and in so doing, she had done nothing less than save him. This fairy tale farmer and his daughter, they would lavish on Rex all the care that I, Dave Feiffer's son, and clearly every bit as unreliable, would not. Sometime next month or next year, my mother had me convincingly fated to fall down on the job. Fall down on the job was a copyrighted phrase of hers. So here I am, many years later, living in the middle of this Jewish mother joke, where she asked me, "Sonny boy, is there anything I ever did to you that you resent me for?" And I respond, "No, Ma." I may be resentful, I may be bitter, I may want to murder the woman, but I don't want to wound her after all these years. Also, I am not stupid. I didn't want to walk into the trap she had set for me. I had been in therapy on and off for 18 years. I was not a fool, not a patsy, had found my tongue in my adult years, could even, when push came to shove, argue with her, force her to retreat, or pretend to, which was, as far as I was concerned, more than enough of a victory, especially with a past such as mine, where I had never won a fight with my mother ever. But she was no fool either. She was not going to accept my no, Ma. She carried on because she, too, was living in the middle of a Jewish mother joke. Because, you see, sonny boy, it was a depression, and I had to work because your father's business failed, and he couldn't keep a job, and I had to be away from home a lot, and maybe when you were little, you resented me for that. I was not about to be suckered in. No, Ma, I understood all that. Because who knew about psychology in those days? The woman was not about to give up. Maybe there were things I would have done different if I knew better. All these famous men hold it against their mothers. You sure you don't hold it against me? And I said, no, Ma, I understood. She continued to circle me, because with the best intentions in the world, I could have done something to hurt you, and I don't want you to hide it from me after all these years. Will she never let up? This was going to take weeks. I had important things to do. I didn't know what, but the most important was to get my mother off the phone. And because of all my years of psychotherapy, I coolly analyzed the situation. She wasn't going to let me off the phone, even if she had to go on talking forever, until I conceded her something. So I scripted inside my head lines that let me surrender, a smidgen, in a tone meant to be offhand but affectionate. I said, "Ma, what does it matter whatever happened? It all happened so many years ago and during such hard times that I've long since forgotten and forgiven you." I wasn't crazy about the way it came out. I held my breath. 5 endless seconds went by, and then my mother said in a voice dry and bitter, "Is that the thanks I get?" As I lay spread out on the floor for the 8 count, I thought in admiration and pride, my God, she can still do it. I'm not sure when my friend Mel Lazarus started his syndicated strip Mama, but I believe I was the author of the first Jewish mother cartoon, which I have reprinted in the book. I won't go into it. I took great pains in drawing the cartoon. My first pass at it made the woman look like my mother, a no-no. She would see it. She would be upset. I was after plausible deniability. So I tossed the first art and redrew it. This time I did better, or so I thought. I took it down to the Village Voice on a Monday and looked for it when the paper came out on Wednesday, and in my regular spot on page 4, running across the bottom of the page, there was my strip, and it was an 8-panel portrait of my mother. How could I have screwed up so monumentally? I swear it didn't look like my mother on the drawing table after I drew it. It didn't look like my mother the next morning as I packed it in an envelope to take it to the Voice. At the Voice, admiring it as I showed it off to members of the staff. It didn't bear the slightest resemblance to my mother. During all these exposures of my original art, I was proud to observe that the mother in the cartoon was a perfect stranger. Otherwise, I think I would have noticed. But reduced on the page to almost half size, a stunning and unwelcome transformation took place. I was staring at it when the phone rang. "Hello, Ma," I said into the phone. "I don't know what you're talking about, Ma." No, it doesn't at all look like you. It's not supposed to. The mother talks with a New York Jewish accent. You don't sound anything like that. I'm sorry you're upset, but you've got to believe me. It's my friend Norton's mother. It looks exactly like her. I hope she doesn't see the Voice. I'm afraid she's going to be upset. I've lied to my mother all my adult life and the better half of my teenage life. The choice was either lying to her or never seeing her again. I didn't think my mother's crimes against me were so serious that I should stop knowing her, and even after I learned to fight back, which took too many years, I didn't believe that continually confronting a woman who never in her life admitted she was wrong would make for a satisfactory relationship.